This lecture is brought to you by the virtual campus of the Reformed Baptist Seminary. For information on other courses or seminary programs, please contact us at info@rbseminary.org or go to our website, rbseminary.org.
The following is the first of two lectures I was asked to deliver for Reformed Baptist Seminary in Sacramento, California. The two lectures are entitled Technology Giveth and, second, Technology Taketh Away. There is no third lecture entitled Blessed Be the Name of Technology. I think we bless it enough. My longtime respected friend Bob Gonzalez, a fellow BJU PhD graduate, is the Dean of Reformed Baptist Seminary, RBS. He's a fine fellow, and I enjoy serving his school. They have a well-developed online program in which I am a minor instructor, and you should check it out. I've enjoyed serving my students there. There's one significant little word hidden in plain sight in Genesis 1, in a passage which is itself hidden in plain sight for far too many readers. That passage is Genesis 1:28, and that word is blessed. The imperative in that verse, often called the creation mandate, is preceded by a blessing. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over it." It seems that the creation mandate is then both a blessing and a task. Read a book like Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Fates of Human Societies, and you'll see what I mean. Ineluctably, humanity lives out the blessing of that mandate, and few, if any, societies have tried to elect it. Diamond's naturalistic evolutionary schema isn't the correct explanation for why hunter-gatherers develop into farmers who develop into city and then nation-states. Instead, the explanation is to be found in the original code that God programmed into his image-bearers. The cultural and technological developments in Genesis 4 make it clear that this programming is operative even in the line of Cain, the seed of the serpent. I'm talking about Jubal's invention of musical instruments and Tubal-Cain's invention of metallurgy. I think these things are mentioned in order to demonstrate that what we call the creation blessing or even the cultural mandate was still in effect even after the fall. Even people who did not intend to fulfill it, in fact, ended up doing so, and they still do, because it's a divine blessing to all mankind. Christians, however, have every reason to focus on the task aspect of the mandate. We have the privilege of bringing glory to God through our work, on purpose. Subduing and having dominion can be intentional for us rather than merely inevitable. Technology is what happens when humans, whether intentionally or no, fulfill God's original mandate to his image bearers to subdue and have dominion. As soon as you get to work filling and subduing, you run into problems that require tools. Grains that need scything, wheat that needs transporting to distant markets which will pay higher prices, bridges to make those markets less distant, etc., etc. Ad in eluctum. We tend to call technology those tools that are of more recent invention, those that involve computers. Anything that was invented after you turned 30, said Douglas Adams. But because there is no heaven-sent definition of the concept of technology, I find it useful to think of technology as part of an ongoing series of human inventions of tools throughout time. Technology, then, is not an accidental add-on in God's world, something Adam and Eve weren't meant to discover or develop. It's a God-given good. It's not neutral, it's good. The potential for this he placed in creation. Like everything in this fallen world, however, it is all too often a Satan-twisted evil, technology is. And one way in which Satan has successfully bent Western thinking, twisted it with regard to technology is, the internet tells me, the common idea that technology is a tool and only a tool, that it is neutral. This is not so. Technology carries with it great promise as a tool for God-glorifying dominion of my little plot of workspace. But it also is a tool that can subtly undermine the messages I am trying to send and the life I'm trying to live as a minister of the Word. Technology, we will find, sends its own hidden messages, or at least tends to pull its users in directions suited to the technological tool. So I want in two lectures to talk about the very practical blessings technology gives to preachers of God's Word, and in the second lecture, the very real but often subtle dangers it presents. Technology giveth, and technology taketh away. In our first lecture, I will tread familiar ground by praising the benefits of technology and focusing on a few software tools and tips that I recommend for ministers of the Word. We will look especially at some Bible software tools that have proven themselves valuable, and I will offer my latest tips on how to use technology to fill your mind and heart with truth and help fill others' minds and hearts with truth as well. So let's start with a real positive of technology. Technology giveth accessibility. It's a friend to a man of the Word because it makes that Word more accessible. Technology opens views of the Word that were once simply unavailable. The focus of this portion of our time together will be my favorite Bible software program, Logos. When I was first asked to give lectures on technology for RBS, actually over a decade ago as I record this, I said my favorite technology for Bible software was BibleWorks, but BibleWorks is now dead, and I now actually work for the company, Faith Life, that makes Logos. And ever since I came to Faith Life, I've been sensitive about appearing to be a shill for them, just a paid mouthpiece. I think you'll be able to tell, though, that I'm not working on commission. I actually use and love Logos. Also, a small note, Logos can be pronounced Logos or Logos. Doesn't matter. We tend to say Logos around people who can't read Greek, so they know it's got O's and not A's in it. Logos Bible software. Logos is the most important tool I have for getting in close contact with the Bible text as I write and edit articles on Bible study, as I prepare sermons, as I write books and YouTube scripts. Now, we're all cost conscious, except, of course, when it comes to theological books. In that realm, our wives are cost conscious, so we end up in the same place. And I've heard many people balk at the price of Logos base packages. I get it. I did too. Base packages have lots and lots and lots of books in them, and that's why they're expensive. But there's a really good reason they're so expensive, and when you find out what it is, suddenly you realize that Logos base packages are not expensive at all. They take advantage of economies of scale. When I was a poor seminary student working as a research assistant in the library and making very little per hour, I did something that, after many years, I'm still shocked that so few people, as best I know, ever get around to doing. I just went through the list of books in the Logos base packages that I was interested in, the ones I thought I could afford, and I copied them all into a text file. I then culled out the ones that I wasn't interested in. I still have these files. Then I went through the remaining books and resources, the ones that I felt I would use, commentaries, dictionaries, journals, and I was right, by the way, I have used them, and I looked them all up on Amazon to see how much they would cost there. I made a grand total, and I saw immediately that buying all these books on Amazon was going to be vastly more expensive, even used, than buying them in Logos. It's just that with the latter, you have to buy them in one fell swoop, and that makes your heart swoop because it's a chunk of change. But I did it. I looked at the lower levels, Logos Bronze and Silver. There we go with Logos. That's what I feel most natural saying. But they didn't have all the books I really felt I needed. So I looked at the higher levels, Logos Platinum and above, and I just couldn't afford them. So I bought Logos Gold, and I never looked back. The standard packages usually are the place to start, but you'll also want to look at Reformed and Baptist probably. I ended up upgrading later to Platinum and then to Reformed Platinum, and over my time at the company, even though I now have access to all our books for free if I want, I've actually purchased more for my own library just in case I ever leave the company. I grabbed Anglican Bronze one year just to get a few books I wanted, for example. I ended up selling my paper commentaries when I bought Logos Gold, and that helped me defray the cost. Let me just tell you the top 3 things that I use Logos for. This should help orient you as you consider a Logos base package. The first is simple Bible word studies. Now, I hope RBS students watching this have taken or will take the course in which I did some lectures on language and linguistics. Don't do word studies at all, I'd say, until you have some idea both of the promises and the pitfalls involved, and I talk about those in those lectures. But once you do that, there's no better way to survey the usage of a given biblical Hebrew or Greek word than to use the Logos Bible Word Study. I use it all the time. It gives me access to lexicons, dictionaries, which for me is sort of like skipping to commentaries before I do my own exegesis. Sometimes, though, that's all I have time for, and that's okay. It's handy to have them at the top of the report that Logos generates, the Bible Word Study. The Bible word study also shows me all the ways a given original language word gets translated in my chosen English translation. That is super helpful because it divides up for me conceptually all the uses of a given Hebrew or Greek word. I click on one of the parts of the ring graph and I see immediately all the places in the Bible where that word gets translated with that particular gloss, it's called. In Hebrew Bible word studies, I also get to see immediately how many different Hebrew words a given English word is used to translate, helping me find synonyms and helping me therefore refine further my understanding of a given lexeme or word in the overall Hebrew vocabulary. I get a helpful layout of all the Hebrew words based on that root, also in the Bible word study. I get other nerdy stuff. I won't talk much about case frames and all that, lest I get lost in cool minutiae. And then I get something I never knew I wanted until I had it, lemma in passage. Commentaries often discuss keywords, and Logos searches all your commentaries to find those discussions. It's automatic. I was looking at pasach the other day, and this kind of obscure word means limp showed up 29 times in my commentaries. I would not have looked at a single one of them if I didn't have this tool. Lexicons usually give abbreviated discussions of words. That's what they're there to do, but a commentator can go into more detail. This can be very valuable. And speaking of commentaries, the second major thing that I use Logos for is what I call commentary referenda. I am bivocational, or kind of tetravocational. I currently edit Bible Study Magazine. I do a little bit of consulting as a sort of academic editor at Lexham Press, the publishing arm of Faith Life. I write books and articles and lots of YouTube scripts like the one you're listening to or viewing now. I have a wife and children, and I serve as an assistant pastor at my church where I teach Sunday school or preach pretty much every single Sunday. Usually it's Sunday school, not preaching. But when I preach, as I'm set to do this coming Sunday, as I record, I don't have a ton of time for preparation. I did years of preparation in school and in my various jobs as Bible textbook author and Bible writer of other kinds. I also made sure to amass a Logos library that helps me do my sermon and Sunday school prep in the amount of time that I have available. What I frequently find myself doing is digging into a scripture passage and then getting to a point where I want and need the opinions of biblical scholars I respect. In other words, I will perform a referendum, collecting the votes or opinions of multiple commentaries. Every once in a while, I have a very specific question, like the time I wanted to know, did Jephthah actually sacrifice his daughter, or did he consign her to perpetual virginity or something? In Logos, I pull up a passage guide, do this all the time, and I enter the passage I'm studying. In this case, that was Judges 11:39, the verse that says that Jephthah, quote, did with his daughter according to the vow that he had made. And then I just start clicking on commentaries and opening them up in new tabs. I have something like 60 plus commentaries of varying kinds and perspectives, some technical, some devotional, some evangelical, some mainline, and some Catholic. I took a vote, and it was very interesting. The results of my referendum among commentaries precisely matched the results of a vote among readers of the Logos Bible software blog, where I wrote an article about this. Now, you don't and shouldn't do all your interpretation by vote. A lot would depend in that case on who is voting. But there are other reasons and ways to check commentaries, and even when I'm not checking dozens, I frequently will check 5 or 10. I just want to see if they picked up on the same things I did in the passage. I want to see if they can offer corrections or supports, maybe, to what I have seen. I love to check commentators of different eras, too, like Calvin, all the way up to the most recent ones. I want them to help me connect the passage to theology. I want them maybe even sometimes to suggest an illustration that I could use. If I were univocational and preparing sermons was part of my main work, I think I would work longer, more time at my own exegesis before turning to the commentaries. But I would still turn to them, and I would still get great value. When all I had was paper commentaries, I would hardly ever look at more than 1 or 2 on any given passage. It was just so much hassle. Now, Logos opens up my commentaries right to the page I need. I use this feature all the time. Let me pause to expand on this a bit, because technology is at play here. It makes Bible teachers, who are God's gift to the church, Ephesians 4, 1 Corinthians 3, infinitely more accessible, as I said. One of my favorite Spurgeon quotes, we all have them, don't we, is as follows. In order to be able to expound the Scriptures, you will need to be familiar with the commentators. A glorious army, let me tell you, whose acquaintance will be your delight and profit. Of course, you are not such wiseacres as to think or say that you can expound Scripture without assistance from the works of divines and learned men who have labored before you in the field of exposition. If you are of that opinion, pray remain so, for you are not worth the trouble of conversion, and, like a little coterie who think with you, would resent the attempt as an insult to your infallibility. It seems odd that certain men who talk so much of what the Holy Spirit reveals to themselves should think so little of what he has revealed to others. Spurgeon is a little more sarcastic about this than I could be. That's why I quote him, so he can take the blame. And we may even feel a little bit nervous about his saying that the Spirit reveals certain things to commentators. But I don't think he's doing anything more than referencing John 16, the Spirit will guide you into all truth. He isn't using technical terminology here. What he says can easily be understood as speaking of what we would call illumination. And his mention of the Spirit also points me to the one verse that has helped me the most on the issue of using books and commentaries, and of my opinion of my own. Many years of formal education. Really, what authority does any mere human such as myself have to tell someone else what a Bible text means? And how does school help me bear that authority? A certain breed of preacher, the one Spurgeon fingers, may wonder why he should bother doing any reading or matriculating when he has the Holy Spirit himself, thank you. But you're not that kind of preacher. You believe what Paul said in Ephesians 4. Teachers are one of the Spirit's, one of Christ's gifts to the church. You also believe what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3:22. All are yours. Paul, Peter, Apollos, Piper, Packer, and the Puritans, all are yours. They are given to the church for your benefit. But until the printing press, very few of those preachers were available for my benefit in anything more than theory. And before recording technology and the internet, only their printed words were available to me, and at a significant cost. Now we are awash in free words, recorded, printed, and even piped to the phone in your pocket. Nearly any of God's gifts to the church can be God's instant gifts to your iPhone if you want them to be. That army of commentators can be amassed anywhere by anyone with a smartphone. I'm hinting at a negative here that I'll get into in the next lecture. It can be hard to find the best little molecules in the overwhelming tsunami that we call the internet. What you need is what Neil Postman called an information filter. Your own personal library, like my books in the background here, whether in paper or in Logos, is an information filter. The books you choose to put on your shelves have been filtered out of the millions of available books by your buying choices, by the recommendations you've received, and sometimes by well-meaning in-laws. You use those books despite all the books out there because you trust your filter. But many of us find we need an added layer of filtering. There are so many books, even in our own individual libraries. Which ones do we turn to in our limited time available? And where do we go in them for the information we want? Logos is especially good at filtering the information in your library. I encourage you to use it. Now to the third value of Logos. This may seem minor, and maybe it's mostly a reflection on how I work. Maybe you work differently. But I've told people my mind is like a sieve. I forget far more than I know. Most things I read seem to pass through my poor weak mind like soup through that sieve. But just enough of the little bits of vegetable and meat get encrusted on the sides that the reading is worthwhile. And over time, a layer of dried and crusted food collects on the edges of my brain as I keep pouring soup after soup into it. Is that a nice image? The illustrations that come most readily to mind are those that come from my most recent reading, the top layer of encrusted soup bits. There's also a foundation layer, however, of thoughts and quotes that have meant so much to me over the years that they really stick to the wires of that sieve. I retain them in my memory, even over the long haul. Where am I going with this terrible metaphor? It's here. When I need to find recent and past quotes in books, I turn often to Logos. In Logos, I can search my whole library, or just my John Frame books, or just my C.S. Lewis books, and I can then find the quotes I need. And if I'm certain I know what book I read something in, but I don't know where exactly the quote lies, I can open that book and click Command F or Control F in Windows and instantly find the next instance of a given word or phrase. Again, this may seem minor, but it really helps me given the way I work. Contrast that with my Amazon Kindle. I've purchased hundreds of titles for it over 13 years, many of them at nice discounts, especially C.S. Lewis books, actually. I borrowed books from the library on it. The e-ink Kindle device is very handy. I go through phases where I read it a fair bit. I can even get library books on it, like I said, super cool. But you cannot search your entire Kindle library. You can only search one book at a time. This is very limiting. I am all the time wanting to search for exact quotes to find their source. You get a big Logos library, not necessarily, and not really at all, because you're going to read every last book, though more power to you if you do, I guess. But you get it because the library itself is a searchable resource. The one thing Kindle does really well, something that Logos can do now too, is recording my highlights in any given book and making them easily accessible to me. Kindle and Logos can both do this, so I personally keep a file in my Markdown text editing app. More on that in a bit. Quick bonus of Logos. I have to mention that there are some really great tools in it for preachers. I'm not a weekly preacher, so I don't use all these tools, but I'm genuinely impressed with them, and I commend them to you. Sermon Editor is a great place to plan and write sermons. And get this, if you use slides, Logos will automatically create visual slides from your sermon headings. You can choose the theme and add in images, whatever you want. They thought of everything in the Sermon Editor. It's really cool. When you're done, you can preach easily from your iPad. It even has speaker notes that only you see. Logos also feeds your sermons, your visuals, into Proclaim, presentation software that's in the cloud that worship leaders, secretaries, and you, the preacher, can all access. That's in Logos. There's so much more too. Journals, Bible texts, morphological and lemma searching, text comparison, text transliteration. I encourage people to use the training videos at logos.com/training. And I'm sorry if I sound like a salesman, but I really love Logos and I'm not working on commission. At the very least, get the free version of Logos called Logos Basic and sign up for our free book of the month email list. I pretty much never miss it. It's a great way to add some good stuff to your library when your budget is zero. Okay, now we move into some tech tips for preachers and Bible teachers. I'm a techie guy and I've worked for years to refine my various systems. I'm going to give 7 rapid tips to close out our time talking about the benefits of technology. What does technology give to preachers of the word? First, Markdown. I am a nut for Markdown. Markdown is a stripped-down style of HTML text editing. The main language of the web is HTML, and this allows you to write in plain text. I know that most of you will never get into Markdown, but some of you will, and you'll kick yourself for not doing it sooner. I do all of my writing in an amazing Markdown app called Ulysses. Ulysses can export to any format, and it also organizes all my writing for me and makes it quickly searchable. I have books, articles, sermons, scripts, lectures, notes from reading books, all the stuff I write all the time, organized in Ulysses. It's available on all my devices, and it's lightweight. You can do anything with plain text. It can go anywhere and preserve all your styling. Drafts is another great app for this that I use as sort of a clearinghouse for text, just jotting down ideas. There are a million Markdown apps with all kinds of features. Do yourself a favor, Google Markdown and just explore the idea before you dismiss it. Second tip, keyword searches in Google Chrome. If you manage search engines in the settings for Google Chrome, you can add keyword searches for anything under the sun. Amazon, YouTube, even the ESV. I do this all the time. I set it up so that I can type E space Gen22 and up pops Genesis 22 in my browser. I set it up so that I can type GB space Dominion and Dynasty, and I will immediately see that book on Google Books. This is super handy when you're searching for a full quote in a book you don't own. Bonus tip, I use Alfred on my Mac with the Power Pack to call up other specific translations on biblia.com. I can just type them in and they're there. And bonus tip for the super nerdy, I use Alfred to call up the ESV API and automatically copy Bible verses to my clipboard from the ESV. I love this and use it all the time. Tip 3, you are a steward of God's Word, and many wise people like Spurgeon above have already told you to be a reader. I am a reader not primarily because it's natural for me. It still kind of isn't, although it's getting easier over the years. I am a reader because I'm a servant of other people, and I want to be a good servant, a faithful one. I find that I do need a bit of structure to help me make sure I read like I should. I generally set a goal of reading a book a week each year. I'm taking it a little easier this year, but for many years I've tracked this on Goodreads. I find that if I set a goal and track myself, and if I write up even short reviews of the books I read, I retain better what I do read. Tip 5. Nowadays, your church will be judged first by its website, period. Your church website is your brochure to potential visitors. It needs to be designed in such a way that it can remain static, aside from updating sermons each week and possibly an events calendar if you're sure somebody can keep up with it. Because unless you have a large staff and someone paid to do it, your church site will not get updated. I majored in graphic design initially in college. I've designed dozens of church websites over the years. It's kind of a paid hobby for me. And I have run into only one church website that wasn't done by a professional and yet fooled me and made me think it was. I encourage you to put money into your church website, hire a professional, or at least get a gifted person to use Squarespace or Wix. The same goes for your logo. You get what you pay for. It is an important ministry expense. Tip 6 for true nerds. If you are a pastor, you are a writer. You will be dealing with text all the time. Markdown is only the second nerdiest tip I have for you writers. The most nerdiest is regex, regular expressions. If you will get BB Edit or Text Soap for the Mac or some comparable nerdy text editor for Windows, and if you will learn how to find and replace text with the powers of regex, I think you will thank me. I am all the time manipulating large amounts of text, sometimes whole books or whole books of the Bible, often large amounts of Bible text. Regex has saved me hours and hours of manual labor. Minor added point, I subscribe to Set App, which is like Netflix for Mac apps. It includes Ulysses and several of the tools I've mentioned in this list. I am not embarrassed to tell you that if you use my promo code, we both get some money off. Just go to bit.ly 2SA3MTY, all caps, as you see here on the screen. I love Set App. I am a true nerd. I'm going to stop with tip 7. I listen to lectures and sermons and audiobooks and podcasts pretty much any second that I'm in the car or doing yard work or taking a shower. I have Bluetooth speakers and headphones everywhere around the house and in my garage ready for me to use, in my car too. I use an app called Downy with Set App to download the audio from YouTube videos and send it to a personal podcast feed that I then listen to. You can read about this on my blog by faithweunderstand.com. Just search for Downy. I use an app called Voice Dream Reader now to convert text to speech and read articles and books to me, often articles I've saved using another great app called Instapaper. My wife doesn't know how I can continue my manic reading and listening pace all the time, but I really think I would ossify without rubbing my brain against other people's brains all the time, without pouring soup through the sieve at all times. I share evangelical scholar Michael Kruger's dread of the pastor's office that contains no books, or no books that have come out since he was in seminary. Be humble by structuring your busy life to include as much taking in of good truth and teaching as you can. All are yours. Clearly, I love technology. I view it as a gift of God, something He programmed into His very good creation. Clearly, it brings me many benefits. It giveth me a lot of valuable stuff as a preacher and teacher of the Word. But this is a fallen world. God's good gifts in creation come to us twisted by the fall. So come back for my next lecture, Technology Taketh Away.